Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Co-Creating with AI. I'm Martin, and with me is Rasmus, as always. You're back from Malaysia, Rasmus.
Yeah, back last night, pretty much. A little bit jet lagged, but not too bad. How are
Awesome.
you?
I'm good. I'm bending down my head fully into embeddings. Actually, I'm working on. I brought in a embeddings library called um, sentence transformers, where you can really use a lot of embeddings models, and I'm comparing them and using multilingual embeddings as well, which makes text of any language adjacent to each other in the vector space, and having a lot of fun with the power of just plain embeddings. It's so powerful because it's super fast as well.
That's pretty cool. So that means like just a multilingual thing. That means that if my data set has consists of texts, let's say, of many different languages, they can still be like one vector space where, the Swedish and English words for the same thing are at the same point in the vector, same, but probably very close at
Exactly.
least. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
and if you have a lot of documentation in English, users can still ask questions in Swedish or whatever language, and that's just a liberty. Like, you don't have to care about a language.
That's pretty nuts, actually. I mean, if you just take that a few steps further,
Mm,
like, isn't it? Like, I mean, it's like it doesn't matter which language you speak or that like it is written in. It's like, when you just take this a few years out, it's like I could be asking questions about, you know, ancient Chinese history that's only written in like, I don't know, old Mandarin. I don't know enough
mm,
about the history, right? But like whatever language like was written in, and as long as those are embedded in the same vector space, I don't have to like ask. I'm not only getting information, third hand from like a English or Swedish author that, researched the topic. I'm actually, getting access to original information.
mm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense? That's how I'm understanding it. That's
yeah,
pretty nuts,
definitely.
actually.
Yeah, and it's very compact. For example, there are now you can just download an embedding of all of Wikipedia, and I suppose
Wow.
it's in that case it's English Wikipedia, but then you get the vector database, so you can just get a Wikipedia URL from any sentence, like what your user says something random, and you can immediately bring up a Wikipedia article. You don't have to embed all of Wikipedia yourself. You just get the URL, and you send the bot to browse it.
That is pretty cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, it
Mm.
actually pretty mind-boggling. I think that's sort of that feels like, the true kind of fruition of kind of Google's vision, right? Right, like all the world's knowledge available to you. Like
Yeah.
if it's even across languages and across, of course, it's been for a while, but across different modalities like
Mm.
text, image, video, like that's already happening, and then languages are happening as well. That means like literally all. Like I'd be surprised if in 5-10 years, like I don't have access to all the world's public information
Yeah.
through like let's call the chatbot, right? Or
Mm.
that's sort of where this ends up, right?
Yeah, and there's in that direction there are now very mature APIs. Perplexity is one, and Metaphor is another. Metaphor might have changed the name recently. I forget to what, but so they are basically huge vector databases of the entire web, and then an LLM on top, and you can call them through your browser or through an API. So if you build your own AI service, you can give your AI a vector search tool for the entire uh, web.
It's so crazy as well because that's like Google's secret sauce, and I mean
Yeah.
I bet that Google has more on top of this, right? They've been working at this for a while, but
Mm.
it's still like new developer, you know, like access to Google's, indexing or like of the internet, right?
Mm.
Equivalent.
I'm
Nice.
playing around with there's a super useful GitHub library called Semantic Router, which is basically just like if you're building a website, you have a routing module which takes the URL and routes it to the correct code to render that page. But this is a semantic router, so when the user asks a question, or you're in the middle of a chat conversation and the user just states something, uh, semantic router embeds that statement or that question and then routes. You can build custom routing then based on embeddings, so you can have all kinds of embeddings for different topics like politics or e-commerce or travel or whatever your bot is about, and then you can route the to the correct LLM. So, for example, if the user is asking for, like, search the web for this, then you can, instead of calling GPT-4 and letting GPT-4 decide to search the web, you can just plainly, like, send that question to Perplexity, and to their API, and get the response back and show to the user.
But wait, so just to like double click on that and maybe like simplify it a bit, at least for me and maybe for the listener. So what we're saying here is I have a bunch of information that, like, let's say we have these different vector databases
Mhm.
that are the results of different sources of data that have been like that someone has run embeddings on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And now you have the end user wanting something, and then the semantic router. So if I ask a question about travel, then
mm,
the router is going to direct me to the vector database about travel, and
yeah,
thereby
yeah.
being able to extract that information. But
Mm,
if I'm interested in something else, it goes through another database. That's what
exactly.
this is about. Okay.
And it could be not even just a different database, but a completely different AI. You could have like a fine-tuned LLM for travel, and which both uses a database and APIs to do some magic around travel. And then
Hmm.
you don't call that until your semantic router discovers that the user is going into travel as a topic.
Interesting, but this must be like something that. I mean, do you think OpenAI is already using this in some capacity? Because at least it seems like a logical next step, right? Because if you have all these GPTs,
Mm,
then how does general chat GPT, let's call it, that's going to go towards AGI, right?
mm,
Like decide which GPT to use, or if there are different data sources you have access to through it, et cetera, right? Is that the kind of that must be like core to like the AI interface that the end user is using, right? It's like it's close to the user and then decides what
yeah,
models or data sets to use. It's like
yeah.
that kind of.
And exactly, because currently the way I explore embeddings, it's a very fast way to do data processing outside of the LLM, while still sort of existing within the same um, the same understanding space. So you know that my classifications using embeddings will match then what my AI, what my LLM will think and understand about the same content.
Interesting. And one of the other properties of embeddings, it's much quicker than
Yeah,
than like running it through the actual LLM, right?
yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure if you like. I would be curious why, but if we just look at what does that mean, then it means you can use it for things where the LLMs are currently too slow. So you can. I mean, give like what's an example? Because you've been actually using this practically now, right? So
yeah,
what's.
yeah. So, for example, if you want to um, do some data analysis. Basically, RAG is a great example that you want to call your big, super smart, slow AI language model, but you want to fill the context with data, and you want that to be super fast. So you use embeddings rather than having a big, fine-tuned data storage LLM, which is really slow to query. You query your vector database, or you can do um, some kind of routing like the semantic router is doing, but you can also do just plain classification, like is the user asking about something I want my AI to talk about, or am I building an e-commerce AI and I don't want it to talk about politics or bomb making? So I and then you can just embed a lot of your e-commerce content, or all of it basically, and then when the user says something, you compare it to the embeddings of your content, and you can see like in not a 3D space, but in a very high multidimensional space, is the vector, the position or the location of the topic the user is talking about, is that within the cloud of topics that I want my AI to be concerned of.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can very quickly do a bunch of like you can like it's a little bit like you can use embeddings to understand the user, right?
Mm,
Very quickly in different
mm,
ways. You can analyze, say what's the topic they're talking about, what emotion are they,
mm.
are like what are they angry? That's
Yeah.
that's a good thing like customer service or in sales or whatever, right? Are they happy? Are they, prone to purchase maybe? I mean, manipulative, but like
Mm,
you just look at the use cases. Uh, and and also you can then like from that understanding of the user, you can pull up very quickly the relevant information, much quicker
yeah.
than actually, calling the LLM to apply intelligence. This is still just like it feels a little bit more classical, right? I mean, I know it's part of this LLM paradigm, but it
Mm,
feels like the kind of things you do is not like write code for me. It's more like classify, understand, route, like you
mm,
said, to the relevant information, pull out the relevant information, and then from that kind of soup, from that context, then you can like apply intelligence.
mm,
Ask say GPT-4 to based on, okay, we're talking about e-commerce. Okay, this person is, I don't know, passionate about the outdoors and is, prone to purchase. Here is the vector space of uh, products that are relevant, and then you send that to the LLM to like recommend the top three things because this company never wants to recommend more than three because then the user gets confused or something.
mm.
You know, that's kind of is that like a decent example? But the last thing might take longer because then the LLM actually from that context needs to understand, take all this information and then make a good recommendation to the
Yeah,
user.
and
Yeah,
and and maybe generate text, like
yeah,
generate a paragraph of text that summarizes all of that
yeah,
into something that is more pleasant to read.
yeah.
And so the embeddings are all math. You just get numbers. You get like how angry is this text? 0.7. Like
Mm.
there's it's very very terse in information like that, but but it's super powerful because you can, it's so highly dimensional. So it's not only the, like you can embed a big list of emotions and see which emotion is this text closest to, but you can also embed a style of writing. So you can embed like formal writing and casual writing, and then you can see where is this text closest to one of them. And so there's all of these possibilities that is very untapped today. And plus, we, since it's all math, you can actually you can do arithmetics on semantics. So you can um, take you can if you take like France and Paris and you embed them, and if you subtract um, France from Paris and then add Italy, you get Rome. So it's like it's you can add and
Mm.
subtract semantic meaning using embeddings.
Mm.
It is since it's all math, and that's
I mean, I've heard that example before. What's the use for that though?
yeah. So for example, if you have this is actually uh, um, what Notion is doing when they um, apply styling on user written text inside of Notion, and that then they add more. They take um, they take the user text, and if the user requests a professional tone of voice, they take the embeddings for professional text and add it to the like and not like what I mean when I say add is the mathematical
Mm.
definition of just they use addition. So they take the
Mm.
vector for the text, they add the vector for professional, and then they regenerate the result from the sum of those, and then they get a more professional text. And
Okay, but okay, this is cool. Okay, so but and this is different from say what ChatGPT is doing when I'm asking it to write in professional English, right?
yes.
Most likely, because then you have the you have the basic weights of the LLM where it
Mm,
will when I'm asking for a professional, it's stupidly said it will like route here like
mm,
through the training, and then like the end result will be based on all the professional, so to say, texts of that set. But would this be like different, better generally if I take my base text or my base request and then I have this vector space of professional text to add on to it? Is
mm.
that like or do you know that Notion is doing this to get like better results in this regard?
Yeah, so yeah, they have their CTO have some YouTube talks about this, how they built this. And so what they do is much more closer to how Midjourney or DALL-E generates images, because they also use embeddings of the words. When you type in rabbit and then you add the word angry, you get an angry rabbit because they produce an image of the sum, and then you can, if you feel like it has too much fur, you can say minus fur inside Midjourney, and that's what Notion is doing, but on text instead of images.
Oh wow, yeah, that is pretty impressive actually. Like that's the way it's gone, and that is pre like sending it to the LLM. No,
Yeah, yeah. And well, so they have sort of an LLM to generate the output. It's just that
yeah,
the LLM is it's working from embeddings rather than from a textual prompt.
okay, but okay, right. So that's so interesting. So it basically converts my prompt here
Mm,
to route it to these vector databases and then adding them rabbit angry. Here's a database of or a vector space of angry images, a vector
mm,
space of rabbit images, and then they add them on top. They
yes.
don't send this to like some other type of image gen LLM that then needs to interpret these words as,
Mm.
okay.
And that's actually how multimodal AI works as well. So GPT-4 Vision, it generates the embeddings of an image, and then it interprets the embeddings directly in its own latent space. So it's not converting the image to text and then reading the text as a context and generating some output, but it's actually working from the embeddings of the image, which means that you actually have to how you prompt it. This is part of how you then prompt GPT-4 is part of what it decides to pull out from those embeddings when it generates text, and it's a very embeddings is really at the core of everything about AI, but it's very deep down and technical.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. It's good to understand this better. And I'm curious how much, like, so you mentioned GPT-4 Vision, right? I'm curious just in, say, working with ChatGPT or with Dolly, like, how much, or like, is this a different route from this, like, the OpenAI kind of leadership, the one that Notion is taking and the one that Midjourney is taking? Or is it the same one? Do you know? Like,
Mm,
are they like when you're
yeah.
saying? I mean, the example is like, "Hey, write me, an article about this. Make it more professional."
Mm,
Is it then just sending that prompt to the AI, or are they doing something similar here with the vector space of professional text? Same thing with Dolly. Like, I generated a picture of a giraffe. Now I want a to add a hat to it. I know that
mm,
it goes through the step of GPT-4 Vision here, right? But
mm.
does it take the vector space of images to generate there as well? Do
Yeah,
you know?
so it's OpenAI is working heavily with embeddings in the vector space in order to achieve what they do, the multimodality they do. However, the I actually feel that the way that Notion has done this like vector addition to achieve different tones of voice and so on, the results are much more fuzzy and not as sharp as if you were just prompting GPT-4 to do it
Okay,
differently. So
okay.
so it's sort of an experiment that shows the power of embeddings and which has greatly increased my understanding and willingness to explore other use cases for embeddings, but it's not like they have found a pot of gold that no one else did, because in for the end user it's sort of, yeah, it's sort of there, but I would rather just put the text in GPT-4 to and tell it what to do with it.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, I sort of I think I misunderstood you there because I think my reference point was Mid Journey, which is
Yeah,
still, you know,
which is still state of the art. Yeah,
yeah.
that's my bad to
No,
like
no, 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 not at
yeah,
all. I was just
yeah,
like that. That was
mm,
my assumption then. Oh, that's how
yeah,
Mid Journey does it, and now
mm,
Notion does it, and you were impressed, and I was like,
yeah.
adding them together
Now,
semantically.
what I really got to understand from the Notion demos was the really the power of and the richness of an embedding that
Mm.
with, especially when you see that with the AI the model they have fine tuned, they can take the embedding of a paragraph and then run it in reverse and get the paragraph back almost verbatim, just from 3,000 float numbers they get the paragraph back with, like if it used a quote in the beginning it still has a quote in the beginning, and if you use a casual tone it's a casual tone, and if they mention some facts it's still mentioning the same facts, and that's just like incredible. That means that there's a lot more to explore just from embeddings and vector search, rather than like on top of just RAG, which is what everybody is using embeddings for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to send this episode to a friend of mine who's a neuroscience postdoc, working with memory and decision making, and
Hmm.
obviously interested, very interested in AI. We had a chat like a couple of weeks back again, and because it feels like, and this is very,
Mm,
he's probably gonna, completely say I'm off here, but it feels like that's the way, like that could be like how our brains work in one sense, like
mm,
in like just like that they are relational, like just like okay, how am I creative around something? Like okay, so I have some memory of seeing dogs, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
have some memory of people being angry. And now I sort of merge those two to create an angry dog.
mm,
That feels like it is kind of how it or at least, and then or maybe that's like it just like feels like that would at least be one part of how I utilize memory,
mm,
and that's what people have been advertising vector databases as, right? The long-term memory for AI. So let's say they're correct, right? And it's an equivalence to our memory, and
yeah,
then we process it through whatever part of our brain is responsible for you know, the um, the generative part. Let's say,
mm,
calling up memory and then generating some output, whether that's speech or images or whatever modality. Um, and that would be like the LLM in this case. So it's sort
mm,
of like it feels like with that we are really like getting close to the fundamental building blocks of like at least experientially how like
yeah.
it feels to um, remember and use that memory to think and
Mm.
create things and generate output.
And that is actually also what they use. If you've seen these crazy videos where they do actual brain reading, where they bring out
Yeah.
some EEG signals and they interpret them into images, and you can see that when you tell the person, the human, to think about the rabbit, and there's a sort of a vague, fuzzy, noisy rabbit starting to appear on the
Mm,
screen, and it's super
mm,
scary. and
yeah.
and that what they're doing is that they have trained an an, an AI model, fine tuned it to convert the EEG signals something like embeddings, like Clip or Blip or some standard where they have embeddings for the entire world of images, so they can translate, and then they use some kind of diffusion model for getting the image from the embeddings that they translate the brain signals into. So it's that's also like you're spot on with that embeddings are right now it's our best understanding for how to translate between different um, realms, like between the wet brain of humans and the silicon brain of computers, and between video and text and images and emotions. And that's it's just a extremely powerful language of mathematics and semantics.
But in this case, with the the MRI scans, it was MRI, right? Yeah. So you're saying like is there a clean data set of like MRI scans unconnected from images, or do they actually have 1,000 people looking at images and measuring their
Yeah,
MRIs first,
yeah, that's
looking
what
at
they're
millions
doing.
of images,
Yeah,
right? And then they have the connection between images and what an MRI looks like, which is also another
yeah,
image, right? So they have like a vector space of images and how close they are,
yeah,
so to say, or maybe they're two vector database and they're like
exactly.
okay. So there's still like that fundamental research to be done to bridge different things like brain waves
Mm,
and images, right? Or brain waves and speech.
yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised then if you can I think like one of the things that Elon Musk wants to do with Neuralink is make blind people see, and it really feels like somewhere here
Hmm.
there is that opportunity.
Yeah,
Like I can,
but because what basically you can already read someone's brain, you don't have to be invasive like Neuralink, but he wants to write into the brain, and that's when he needs to like be invasive, connect the electrodes right into the brain.
all right, yeah, that's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be one of the first there.
No.
I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. Okay, but so if we take this more like practical, then I mean, so did you? I think I sent you the just a short summary of the chat that Sam Altman had with Bill Gates, right? With like what he how he talks about GPT-5, which is like
Yeah.
a lot of personalization and customizability. But let's focus maybe on personalization, and
Mm.
he said it would the pivotal enhancements, like the big things that would happen, would be that
Yeah.
the model will be capable to understand individual preferences, incorporating all that data about users, like in their emails, calendars, appointment preferences, whatever, right? And there's going to be
Mm.
medical data. It's going to be maybe not in ChatGPT, but all of this stuff is going to get into some kind of
Mm.
AI, right? So let's just use GPT-5 as kind of the focal point for there. Like so connecting that to what we just talked about, how do you see that playing out, like with embeddings? Do you think that's like is what we talked about part of that, like a
Yeah,
part that?
it's to me it's somewhat disappointing actually. Like I I want Sam Altman to think about how to make the AI reasoning better, not
Mhm.
how to access my email. I want him to let the rest of the world deal with how it gets data from APIs and stuff. I mean, like unless he has some crazy sci-fi stuff with information flows straight into the LLM, so it becomes more of like the AI can start to have more of a subjective experience, and like it's not be frozen in its weight, but actually change in reaction to the rest of the world. But it sounds I strongly believe in the use case, like the experience of the end user that he describes. Though, what are your reactions?
No, my sense was just like from what we talked about that it just feels like they're gonna make embeddings very central to it. So like as a user, they're probably gonna have or already have their own semantic router. All the information I feed in is gonna
Mm,
be embedded into vector
mm,
databases in some organized manner,
mm,
depending where they come from. And then you will have like that kind of RAG built in. So whatever, like what we talked about now is like whatever I do with, say, GPT-5, all that data is going to flow in, uh, as a
Mm-hmm.
context, and then all these GPTs will be the arms and legs. So that will be the memory, and then will be arms and legs, and then hope like will be the GPTs, and then hopefully the brain will improve as well.
Yeah.
I mean, should be, and then like I agree, like feels like if we're not going down that route, it's some kind of dynamic fine tuning or dynamic retraining or something that just happens as the data flows in,
Mm.
so that we all have our own AI, basically, like
Yeah.
going towards that route. That actually your AI, your GPT-5, like when you use ChatGPT and I use ChatGPT, and we ask the same question, 1,000 times,
Mm.
we're still going to get, like, we're not going to get the same answer anytime or even close, because my AI is actually different from yours, because it has all my information and preferences, and yours has yours.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's what he's saying here. It felt more like, you know, next stage, at least, whether they call that 4.5 or 5, it's
Mm.
going to be something along the lines we're talking about now, because I think Sam Altman is like extremely strategical, that he's not going to let anyone else, just rob him of being the end user interface. I mean, and he feels that, if he doesn't do that, then, Google and Apple is going to eat his lunch, which they might anyhow, because, they own the end user kind of interfaces.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, just my 2 cents. I'm not sure, but that's where I am.
Yeah. Maybe he's running out of money just to do like to do training on, or running out of data or something, because otherwise he would just be training the next big brain. uh, I mean, or maybe that's just an interpretation. Maybe he has too much money, he has too many developers now, he needs to put them
Mm.
into, he can't just like have Greg Brockman run fine tuning on GPT-4 into GPT-5. He needs to have 1,000 engineers doing something now.
Yeah, maybe. My sense would be though that, like, our level, like, we can't even talk about Sam Altman. We need to almost talk about like OpenAI, Microsoft
Hmm.
versus Google versus Twitter Grok or X Grok,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Tesla, which is kind of a a thing,
And
and
now
then Apple will hopefully follow that
Alibaba's
in there.
new LLM is like, I just saw a headline, of course, as we do nowadays. I saw
Yeah.
the headline was that Alibaba's new LLM is rivaling or surpassing GPT 3.5 in capacity. So
Okay.
China is also in the game, so to speak, and France, of course, with Mistral.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a good point to round off on, but I think I haven't, like, since I've been traveling a bit, I haven't read as much as I want to, but I mean, I want to dive into the newest Google stuff as well. I just sort of
Yeah.
headline as well, Gemini Ultra, etc. Maybe we'll do a little bit more reading before next time, and then we'll have less hunches and more, I don't know, facts.
Yeah, I will be coding. That's my
Yeah,
that's my
yeah,
that's my favorite pastime.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyhow, good chat, Martin. Thanks a lot.
You too, Rasmus, and thanks to the listener. If you have questions or comments or suggestions for guests and topics, email us at martin or rasmus@multiply.co.